If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Jeff, MD, to my side, former 26-year CIA operative, author extraordinaire, affectionately known in the Survival Dispatch circles as 007. And directly below us, our good friend Khalid Muhammad from Command 11, half American, half Pakistani. And we've now named him 008. Now, here's a crazy thing. It's funny as heck. He sends me a screenshot of text messages with his wife the other night. He goes, she's now referring to him as 008. And more than once, by the way, just one screenshot. So 0808 has stuck. It's not going away. And Randy's not with us tonight because he just turned 29 with we do the math, 29 with 28 years of experience. So he'll be back with us tomorrow night. He's celebrating tonight.
28th anniversary of his 29th birthday.
That works too. Yeah, as well. So this evening, we're going to be discussing prepping and survival before, during, after 9/11 2.0. That's the series name. And tonight, the focus is securing your inner circle. And the theme is essentially family planning, accountability, and roles. So if you have children, what will your kids do if a terrorist attack happens while you're at work? Who grabs the radios? Who grabs the weapons? Who grabs the go bags? All of that sort of stuff. So we've got some pretty interesting content teed up for everybody tonight. But before we do that, we're going to hit the conflicted question of the night. Conflictedthegame.com, 14 card decks on post-apocalyptic scenarios with a question that typically relates to morality, hence the name Conflicted. So here we go. This one's a good one tonight. You were attacked by a gang of robbers and you have successfully defended your urban stronghold. After scouting around, you find their children and their elderly waiting at a safe distance, too young and too old to survive on their own. Supplies are incredibly low and every scrap of food counts. Would you take the elderly and the children prisoners and share your supplies or abandon them? Your limited supplies would be cut in half and a supply run would put lives at risk. How would you handle this situation? Man, that is a doozy. So jumping into the X posts of the day, the news items of the day, especially ones that, whether they speak directly to terrorism or stuff on the periphery of it, like guns and people actually defending themselves with guns. Shocking. I know, shocking. So this post was made by a Khalid earlier today. The FBI has been hiding that over 40% of mass shooters and violent crimes were stopped by private citizen gun owners. Let that sink in. Guns save lives in the hands of the right people. 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Freaking huge. Armed citizens stopped 48% of all criminal shooters last year. And the FBI was just caught massively lying about those numbers in their public reports. They recorded, get this, none of them. 0%. Now, you and I and everyone else have seen those local heroes on social media, but rarely do we ever see these stories in mainstream media. Well, the script is about to flip because a new study by the Crime Prevention Research Center reveals that armed civilians stopped over 1/3 of active criminal shooters between 2014 and 2024, nearly 10 times higher than FBI's reported 3.7% average. And again, with even more Americans getting armed post-2020, just last year alone in 2024, civilians stopped half of all criminal shooters. Yet, as I just stated, the FBI recorded 0 of them. You might be asking, how is this possible? Well, while digging for the study, researchers found that police were often falsely credited instead of the armed civilian, which is a recording pattern that clearly increased over the last 10 years. Now, this begs the question, why would they work so hard to hide the significant benefits of an armed public?
She's great. She does a daily podcast, an article on Substack regarding I got to be careful what I say here because we actually got a strike for this, regarding something to do with weather stations. I'm going to leave it at that. So Khalid, you're front and center here. This was your post. I'm going to give you a first swing at it.
Yeah. Well, look, I am a firm believer that citizens should have weapons. Police departments don't respond immediately. You have maybe 5 minutes to save your family's life. And if you're armed and you know how to use a weapon, you can save your family's lives. And the fact that the government is hiding this information, that's just a shocker. I mean, really, the government hiding something from the public. This is, if you think about it, this was during the Biden administration. So they were against guns. They wanted those weapons taken away. So they're never going to tell that, 50% of violent crime was stopped by civilians that had weapons. And it plays into their narrative, but the narrative has to be collapsed. The more people that are armed, the more people that understand how to use a weapon, the safer America and every place becomes. I mean, here in Pakistan, everyone has at least 5-6 weapons in their house. And everyone is trained. Everyone in the family is trained in how to use them. No one dare comes to a wall. No one dare comes to a door because you're going to get shot.
Rhetorical question, but when you watch these Antifa clowns harass somebody or beat them up, it's always in the Pacific Northwest where they don't have stand your ground or anything like that. You don't see that here in the South because they would get instant high-speed lead poisoning. So Jeff, I'd love to hear your thoughts on I know you're shocked, mark your calendar, write it down.
The government would lie to us. I mean, I just find it incredibly hard to believe. Next thing you know, you'll find out that certain things don't work the way they're supposed to. I just can't imagine. But it just brings up, there's 2 adages. One, an armed society is a polite society. Okay, that's the first one. And the second one is 9 times out of 10, police do not prevent crime, they investigate it.
Yeah.
If you're going to prevent it, you need someone who's there when it happens. And the ideal person is the intended victim, who then becomes the de facto law enforcement officer at the time.
Yeah, and good luck with that, right? So moving on to the next one here from Khalid as well. So this is what we mean about Europe being ready to explode. Thanks to Chris Smits for sharing the 2,606 stabbing attacks in Germany since January of this year. That's one every day and an average of 325 per month. So all of these purple spots on here, I'll blow it up for you. Every single one of those is a stabbing that has happened in Germany since January. These German leaders and British leaders, man, they're committing self-inflicted genocide.
Yeah.
Your
They're
thoughts,
asleep at the wheel. They're asleep at the wheel. I mean, we've been talking about this with Europe for about 2 years now. We've been talking to European intelligence agencies for 2 years saying, listen, the number of asylum seekers that you've let into your country, you have created not only a crime situation, but a terrorism opportunity, because these people are coming into your country. They're saying, well, we're asylum seekers, and then roaming around your cities. Well, they don't have jobs. They don't have lives. They don't have anything else to do. And because they've come from violent societies, they understand violence works. And once they start going violent, there's no way to stop them. I take, for example, like when you look at, if you take a Pakistani, I won't even go into any other country. You take a Pakistani who's applied for asylum in the UK. He goes there and he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have any skills, and he goes on to state welfare. Well, the state's supporting him. You've brought someone into your country that has nothing else to do but think about, how do I pass my time? What can I do to earn some money for myself? The first opportunity they're going to go to is crime.
Right.
So we've been screaming about this, and when you look at that picture, it's behind that is the map of Germany, and you can see it's right on the border of one country specifically where all those stabbings are happening. And when you start to think about how the dynamic relates and why we've been screaming and what countries inside of Europe we've been pointing out, that border makes a lot of sense.
Boy, does it ever. Jeff, I know, I get shocked again, twice in a row. I know you're shocked. You know,
I am.
make a note of the date. Write it down.
I'm shocked. Tell you, there's gambling going on here. But the thing is that also it betrays the liberal mindset, and they think that if you don't give people guns, if people don't have guns, they won't hurt each other. No, when someone wants to hurt you, they're going to hurt you. They're going to use a gun. They're going to use a knife. They're going to use a chainsaw. They're going to use a machete. They're going to use a car. They're going to use a brick, a club, a crowbar. You know, if someone wants to do you harm, they're going to do you harm. You know, the only question is how difficult are you going to make it for them? But let's look at this way. Knives are everywhere. So it's what you've done is you've gone from guns, which are relatively difficult to get a hold of, especially in Europe.
Yeah.
And you've just pushed them to something that's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to, you can't fix that. It's not a problem with the tool. It's a problem with the hand that is hanging on to the tool.
Unless you have a SIG P320.
Well, okay. I won't go there.
And of course,
Japanese World War II guns that would just spontaneously shoot as well, where they have an exposed sphere. But let's just. Okay.
I have a fairly expensive SIG P320 Legion 10 millimeter, and it's a decent enough gun. It hasn't discharged on its own, but when all that stuff started really ramping up, I said to somebody, you know, I've been saying for as long as I can remember, guns don't kill people. Now I have to put a little asterisk on the end of it.
Caveat that.
Yeah.
Well, in defense of the 320, there's really only one trigger assembly that has the issue. There's three different triggers that come with it. And there's one lightweight trigger that when you drop it, the inertia of the trigger itself will make the gun go off.
Yeah, they're MIM components, mold injected metal, and the ones that are a problem are either made in India or they're made by the Indian company here in Texas. So go ahead, and Khalid's, of course, shaking his head like, yeah, screw it.
I'm not going to say a word. Look, I got it bounced off of Facebook yesterday. I'm not going to say a word about it.
Yeah, you missed that, Jeff.
We're not even on India, but no way.
We're not even sure why, but Khalid said something to offend Mark Zuckerberg, and we got kicked off of Facebook midstream. So anyway,
what are the odds?
Pretty good, actually. All right, so moving on to the next one here, another one of Khalid's messages today. Let's get this clear. Germany is dealing with an asylum seeker that is leading to terrorism opportunities, which we believe are on the cusp. France, radicalized well before Germany, is again seeing arrests of jihadis planning to carry out large-scale mass casualty events, much like the 2015 Paris attacks. And the UK, which has been colonized by its former colonial states, is releasing terrorists into the public, a la Joe Biden. Do you still wonder why we keep saying, watch Europe? This is a powder keg waiting for a match to set it off. So the original post, fairly short, 2 teens aged 15 and 17 were arrested in Paris for allegedly plotting terror attacks on synagogues and the Eiffel Tower. French investigators say the pair, linked via an encrypted chat group, shared ISIS sympathies and searched the dark web for weapons. So back to you, Khalid, on this one.
It's just amazing. I mean, Keir Starmer today, I think it was today or was it yesterday, released a jihadi from prison on medical grounds. And I just went, wow. I mean, we thought it was Biden's problem, but it seems like it's something that all of you have decided that every jihadi we've got in jail, we're going to release. And then you look at Germany and you look at France. France was radicalized almost 3 years ago, and radicalized to such a point where in a group of 100, 10 of them to 15 of them are radicals. And some are able to hide it, some are not able to hide it. You have a powder keg in Europe that is ready to explode. And once it goes, all of Europe is gone. Europe will be colonized by jihadis, not by Indians, not by Muslims, not by Syrians, by jihadis. And that will be the end of culture. That will be the end of that civilization as a whole. But it's amazing to us that how is it we're the only ones seeing it?
That's a great question, but I have it on authority that Keir Starmer released that hardened criminal today so he could make room for the 14-year-old girl who protected her 12-year-old sister from being raped by some foreign invader with a knife and a hatchet. And I'm not joking. She was charged.
That's just outrageous. I mean, that's just outrageous.
We've got some stuff on her at the very end of the broadcast night. It's beyond outrageous. It's absolute just insanity, right? All right. So
just real quick.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, there's an issue with France that people aren't even looking at. Really, it ties into this is that they're facing a big time budget issue.
Okay.
They have a $4 trillion deficit. That doesn't sound big when compared to ours, but they have a much smaller economy than we do. And the government is about to fall. And if they have a spending issue and they have to suspend, welfare payments and things like that, because they just don't have the money, what the hell's going to happen to all the Algerians and all these people who live on welfare? And if you cut the payments, they're going to be in the streets.
That's a very valid, great point, Jeff. So moving on to the next one here. So well done, Keir Starmer, your buddy, Khalid. We thought putting terrorists on the street was Joe Biden's job. Guess you've decided to complete the mission for him. Pay attention. The UK government just released a known terrorist into the public. Mohammed Shah Jahan was the leader of a group of 9 men arrested in England on December 20th, 2010 in connection with an Al-Qaeda inspired plot to blow up the London Stock Exchange on Christmas Eve. So let's have a listen to this. I don't know that we need to listen to the whole video, but we'll listen to a good portion of it.
This known terrorist was just released into the public in the UK.
My name is Mohammed Shah Jahan. I'm 25 years old and I come from Stoke-on-Trent. Many people have called myself a radical, a fundamentalist, maybe a terrorist even sometimes. But if they say that I'm a terrorist because I'm calling for my faith, then fair enough. Doesn't mean nothing to me because, if anything, it shows that I'm on the footstep of the Prophet Muhammad because he was called a terrorist, a fundamentalist as well.
If you live in the UK, it could be literally life or death to remember this face. He was the leader of a group of 9 men arrested in England on December 20th, 2010 in connection with an Al-Qaeda inspired plot to blow up the London Stock Exchange on
the fact that Keir Starmer is letting him go is just mind-boggling. I mean, he's a WEF clown / puppet, and he's a lying sack of shit. Pardon my French.
Yeah.
I like one of the most recent instances. Khalid, he's in the Oval Office, and Donald Trump said something with regards to the First Amendment and freedom of speech, and he pipes up, "We have freedom of speech for hundreds of years in Great Britain," and he's just a lying sack of shit. But anyway. If you want to say anything further to this one, it's all you.
Keir Starmer, I mean, he's my favorite British politician of all. He's my favorite politician of all in the UK. The man is inept. He is absolutely stupid. You were the largest voice in passing a quote unquote Child Safety Act that was literally meant to censor the British internet and bring out a Patriot Act type of system where you could read messages, read emails. And I mean, are you dumb? And then you turn around and you look at Syria and Jolani. It's a UK government NGO that rebranded Jolani from a terrorist to a statesman with UK government support. How many different things can we point out that are you a terrorist? Because you're supporting them, you're releasing them, you're converting them, you're rebranding them. Are you really a terrorist? Is that really where your mentality is?
Yeah, it's brutal, absolutely brutal. Let's move on to the last one here before we get into the crux of tonight's episode. So from Sarah Adams, this needs to be solved ASAP, FBI. Our team has been tracking all of the university shooting hoaxes over the past few days. Since the first one, Doan University, August 19th, 2025, there have been at least 22 more. That's 9 days. 22 in 9 days. So it's your post, Cleed. You can take the helm on this, then Jeff, and then we're off to the races.
We've had 4 more today. So we're at 26 now. And we did a post on this the other day, and we said, listen, American phones have CLI. 911 has CLI, caller identification. Are you checking where these calls are coming from? Are you doing any investigation into how this hoax is being carried out? If there's a caller, if there's a threat in Tennessee and the call's coming from New York, how are you giving it any credibility? I think it was the Louisville attack, 300 calls to campus security and 75 calls to 911, and no one is investigating where this is going. This is probing. This goes back to what we were talking about in the last series about how probing goes on. This is probing. They are doing it over and over and over and over and over, and someone is watching, someone is picking up the information, and this is going to come back to haunt you at some point. And when it comes back to haunt you, it's too late. Because if we go back to I think it was the 70s back at the University of Texas, when the guy got up on the clock tower and was firing like a sniper. Back then, no one was talking about active shooter. Nobody was talking about terrorism. Now you have terrorists in your country that are watching you and making these calls. I just saw in the comments that a hospital in Kansas has just gotten an active shooter call. And nobody's bothering to look into this. How are we getting these calls?
Yeah, well, all I'll add is that you called this months ago. For those people who are aware, go back and look at Khalid's X, look at their website, command11.com. Jeff, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well. Some of it's possibly pranks, but some of this is, this sheer number indicates there's something else at play here.
Yeah, the volume, if this was high school in May, I would say it was finals week, but it's not. But what I think a lot of this is too, is they want to desensitize the security system. If you get 50 calls a day, when you get a real one, how are you supposed to know the real one is real as opposed to the 49 cranks? And it's kind of boiling the frog. They're just getting it to the point where the water's going to be hot and no one's going to notice because they've had too many false alarms. Just like the boy who cried wolf.
I'd hold it up, but you wouldn't be able to see it. That's why I wrote that down, actually. But yeah, that's a valid observation, Jeff. Appreciate that. So when we have an opportunity, we like to start with 5 or 6 news articles that are relevant to survival and prepping, and then we get into the main topic of the night. So the main topic tonight is we're going to walk you through preparing a plan for your household, for your family, in the event of a crisis. That crisis could be a terrorist attack. It could be something else. So there's lots of value. As typical, when we design our episodes, we specifically want to make them as broad a reach as possible. And even though, pardon me, this is number 3 in the current 12 series, or 12 episode series, I should say, each one of them stands on their own. You can watch them in order, out of order. You can watch some, not others. It doesn't really matter. So at the end of the day, we've covered 14 episodes now in a row, and that's 4 a week for this crew, that we're facing threats that look more and more like 9/11 2.0 every day as it goes on. The border was wide open. All kinds of terrorists were allowed in the country. You heard J.J. Carroll, 24-year CBP special agent, say that 200,000 SIAs, and that's the number from Biden's DHS, were let in. Special interest aliens, that means terrorist, okay? So if they admit to 200,000 and they know of 200,000, the number is probably significantly higher than that. So you're basically talking an invading army. which, by the way, JJ will be back. We've got two JJs joining us on Monday, JJ Carroll and JJ Morris, by the way. So on top of that, the chatter amongst terrorist groups, dark web, all of the stuff that Khalid monitors, some of the stuff that Khalid's team monitors in person, which we can't really get too in depth with without putting people in harm's way. But the level of activity just continues to go up and up and up. And our law enforcement, for the most part, aren't very well prepared. Thankfully, Sarah Adams, more so here in the Southeast than any other part of the country, I guess, which I am thankful for. But most families aren't prepared for this, which is why we chose this as the topic at this stage of this series, which, by the way, we'll do some sort of formal announcement next week. But Khalid and I mapped out 12 series with 12 episodes each, 144 episodes. You can kind of think of it like the terrorist equivalent of the Walking Dead series, for lack of a better term. And we put a lot of time and thought and effort into it to make sure that people who do tune in can apply it to other instances in their life. So tonight we're going to lay out a plan that y'all can put into action before it's too late. Some people, accuse us of being fear mongers and stuff like that. That's okay. I mean, we've got broad shoulders. We can live with that. And if that's your opinion, you're entitled to it. Hopefully you're right and we're wrong. That would be the perfect ending to all of this. So if you want to, before we jump in, if you jump on over to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account if you don't have one already. You can see our live stream is at the top right now. When we're not live streaming to Substack, it disappears and you would see the first article like this. So this is today's sit rep. Free account gets you access to the sit rep. And if you scroll down to where my signature is right here, you'll see directly below it the family planning guide and then this medical response to upcoming homeland attack, which Nurse Rachel sent to Khalid. So I want to give her a shout out for that. It's a pretty awesome resource in itself, and I'll show that in a little bit. But what I do want to do is I want to get into the guide, and this is exactly what it looks like. And again, it covers everything from calling a family meeting to putting your plan into action. So let's jump in right there on segment 1 is why family roles matter. And I've got all kinds of stuff here. So let me just switch back to this mode here so I can keep track of things. So at the end of the day, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail is the old adage. So if chaos breaks out and you haven't assigned roles to people in your group, your family, that results in confusion, panic, wasted time, and time is, the most important thing. And terror attacks, as Khalid will tell you, are created, they're all about enacting chaos, basically. And so having roles restores some element of that. So as I mentioned earlier, like who grabs the radios, who grabs the weapons, who gets the go bags, who watches the kids, all those sort of things. So Khalid, I'm going to go to you first with a question. In your experience, what's the first breakdown that happens in families?
Communication is the first thing. Because you haven't thought about this. I mean, especially for us in Pakistan, from 2007 until now, we've been in a state of war. And I mean, there were days from up until 2016, there were days when you left the house where you weren't even sure if you were going to come back or not, because there were so many suicide blasts. There were so many, it was mostly suicide blasts from 2017 to 2016. There were days literally when you left the house going, God, I hope I come home, because you didn't know what was going to happen. And when a blast would happen, I've literally walked through suicide blast areas. That is an amazingly shocking thing to see. And with all of that happening and with terrorism picking up again in Pakistan, families still aren't talking about it. And the fact that you're not talking about it, you've already created the failure. A lot of people look at Pakistan, we're a third world country and we deal with a lot of issues, and a lot of them we've created ourselves. There's no doubt about that because of poor governance, we've created them ourselves. But the thing you have to understand is that the objective the terrorist has nothing to do with governance. He wants to create psychological impact. He wants to create a position where you have nothing left to do but to bow to them. And when you don't have your family mentally ready, that this is what's going to happen, this is how we move, this is what we do, you've already lost. That's the end of the game, because your kids don't know which way to go. Your wife doesn't know which way to go. Your mother and father don't, because Pakistan still lives in a joint family system. So you have your mother and father living in the same house with you. So it's not just you, your wife, and your kids. You've got parents, you've got brothers and sisters, you've got nieces and nephews, all inside of one house. And you create such a havoc within your own home that you don't know what to do. So the idea of having a plan, it puts you 2 steps ahead of where you need to be. And even if you never have to use it, like you said, let's hope people are right and we're wrong. And let's say all the intelligence that we've got is wrong and everyone else is right. But if we're right and you haven't planned, then it's game over.
Yeah, well said. So, Jeff, just you've got such a breadth of hands-on knowledge, and I didn't have a chance to review this with you before we went live tonight. But can you think of any examples, like military, law enforcement, or even personal, where having clear roles for everybody to find saved lives? I mean, it's easy to speak to from a high level, but I'm talking like something specific that you're aware of.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was the example I'll give was when I was in Afghanistan, and we lived on a compound, and there was 3 agency guys. There was about a dozen special forces guys, and then we had a local guard force, maybe 20 guys. They called them local. They weren't really, they were Afghanis, but they weren't local. They were from a different part of the country. So there's no loyalty questions with people on the outside. But there was a huge explosion. It was this Halo group that was doing mine clearing. They set off this massive explosion. They were getting rid of old landmines and bombs and stuff. And we didn't know it was coming. And even though it was miles away, it was the largest explosion I'd ever seen in my life. And when we looked, there was this mushroom cloud off in the distance, because I don't remember how many, probably hundreds of tons of explosives went off. But the minute that happened, of course, no one knew what was going on. Everybody, we all had our kind of a battle station where, you grab a weapon, you go there, there's sandbags, it's a fighting position. Instantly, everybody grabbed their weapon and went to their assigned battle station. Mine was on the roof, so I grabbed an M4, and I also grabbed an AK, and I grabbed looked like a little nylon go bag full of loaded magazines. I had probably 200 rounds with me. And and I'm going up the stairs. Like one of the Green Berets is coming down the stairs with one of the fully automatic 30 millimeter grenade launchers. I mean, everybody's just going everywhere and locking down the compound. The guys on the walls, and it's funny, the ones who really kind of got flustered were the local guard force. The Afghanis, because they'd been told and drilled, but I never thought it would happen. I wasn't that sure either. And they kind of ran around with their, like chickens with their heads cut off for a little bit, but we were okay because we had Green Berets and agency guys on every entrance, on the roof lines, sight lines to the fields beyond us, and on the street. We had eyes everywhere, and we were armed. We were ready to go. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, those guys kind of got into it as well. But it was amazing how quickly it fell into a place, because everybody knew what they were supposed to do, where they were going to go. And our commo guy immediately sent a message to Kabul to say, okay, we don't know what happened, there's a massive explosion, and then we were able to say, okay, later, okay, it turns out not to be a threat. But it happened. It was amazing, to be honest, because we hadn't really rehearsed it. We just said, okay, yeah, if something happens, you go here. But everybody did it to a man without fail. At least
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was impressive to watch. It was like, hey, this shit actually works.
When we had Rob O'Neill on, we've had him on a couple of times, the SEAL who shot Osama bin Laden. I asked him, I said, how much time did you guys have to work together as a team before you went on this mission? He said, none. We came in, we were called in, we weren't told what it was for. The next day they briefed us. The next day we were exfilling. And a couple days after that, we were on the choppers into the compound. And he said every single person on those teams, many of whom have never worked together before, had very specific roles. And he said, I had no worries at all with regards to what the guy beside me was going to do. So pretty impressive stuff for sure.
So you have a role and a backup role.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So the first step, and again, if you go to our Substack, survivaldispatch.news, you can download this guide for free. So first things first, hold a family meeting to start the process, maybe a Sunday gathering, kind of like years gone by when we used to do that frequently. If you're a believer, open with a prayer for wisdom and guidance, and then discuss what if scenarios. So basically talk openly about potential crises like a terrorist attack while the parents are at work, while the family's separated. Obviously, you want to keep it age appropriate, as it mentions in the guide, and focus on empowerment, not alarm. What if we hear sirens or lose power? What if we need to leave home quickly? What do we do in those types of scenarios? And assess everybody's strengths and capabilities. Go around the table, list each person's skills, physical abilities, limitations. Adults would typically fall into leadership roles, handling defensive tools, driving, etc. Teens, tech savvy stuff, which, is definitely their wheelhouse these days. Operating radios, checking apps. Young children, simple responsibilities, carry a backpack that's not overly heavy. And now that you've got this weekly meeting that you've put together, so you started initially on a Sunday, maybe every Sunday over dinner. That's a novel concept that kind of went out the window. But if you had a dinner on Sundays, family dinner, that's a good time to review this stuff. So I've got some questions for you guys. I'll start with you, Jeff. As far as what's your recommendation on, like, how do you introduce heavy topics to young children, like terrorism, without creating massive fear in them?
I would start with, like, you're prepping for a natural disaster.
Yeah.
If you're in California, you can say, okay, if there's an earthquake, okay, if there is a wildfire, if you're in the Midwest, if there's a tornado, what do we do? In Florida, if there's a hurricane, what do we do? And then you start with that, because a lot of what you do for a natural disaster, at least the initial, is going to be similar to what you would do in the event of societal breakdown. But you still may have to get the heck out of Dodge. You may have to bug out or bug in, depending on where you are and what you're doing. You're going to need food. You're going to need water. You may need, need weapons for defense. Under any of those circumstances, you need to be prepared. And then get them used to that, and kind of go through it, and then layer in. Okay, let's start with if there's a wildfire in the area and we got to bug out, this is what we're going to do. Okay, now if it turns out to be an earthquake and say the bridges collapse, okay, what are we going to do? And you just kind of change the scenario. And then maybe you go to a terrorist attack, let them dwell on that, and then go back to something else, something a little less scary, but get them thinking that there's a number of things, bad things can happen, and we got to be prepared for them no matter what. The most likely is, okay, maybe if you're in California, the most likely thing's going to be an earthquake or a wildfire.
Right.
But it could also be something else.
No, appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you. So, Khalid, just one quick question, then a longer question. How often do you think families should hold these meetings? Should it be a Sunday thing, or is that a pipe dream in this day and age?
No, it should be weekly. It should be, because the more you discuss these things, the more you get to a mental level where it becomes a natural habit rather than just talking about it. And I'm going to go back to some of the things we talked about last night, where rehearsals, walking through different scenarios in a shopping mall, out in the city. What happens if we run out of gas? What do we do? What happens if the car breaks down? What do we do? And then that's a good place to start from. What happens if the car breaks down on the highway? What do we do? What do the kids do? What does the wife do? What does the husband do? Do we all move together? How do we move? You start really simple. I mean, I like Jeff's point of view where you say, let's talk about natural disasters. Even come more simple. Car breaks down. And when you start from there, it's just a very natural progression that you go step by step and you go more aggressive with the different type of scenario you're talking about. So you build from something very simple and work your way up, Even if you don't say terrorist attack, what if someone comes and tries to rob us? What do we do? Where do the kids hide? Who takes the doors? Who takes the responsibility of calling the police? You have to mentally condition your family. I go back to my childhood. We had snowstorms in Michigan where in the middle of the night we get 8-9 feet of snow. The next morning you'd wake up and go, you can't even walk out the door. My dad would be standing there with a shovel going, get to it, clear the sidewalk.
Right. So good job, by the way, Khalid, because I was going to ask you, what if scenario should we throw in there? So Jeff, I want to ask you, how do you keep teenagers engaged in this sort of stuff who are in that phase? I would say in the past, I would have used to said, from that age of say 12 to 18, but now I think it's like 12 to 30 where they don't believe a word you say.
Yeah, when the parents are stupid, it doesn't stop at 30. It keeps going, believe me. It's kind of hard because you got to get buy-in. And, and if they haven't lived through anything, if they haven't been through a hurricane, if they haven't been through a tornado, it's going to really be hard to focus them on it. Now, if they've been through those kind of things, if they've been through an earthquake and say, okay, remember we had the Northridge earthquake in California? Remember what happened? We were lucky it didn't hit our house, but if it did, I had friends that hit their house, but if it hits ours, we need to do this. We need to be prepared mentally for it. But if you say, yeah, we're going to prepare for a terrorist attack, they're just going to roll their eyes and go, okay, Dad, whatever. They're not going to pay attention. And they say, okay, and since you're not participating, son, when push comes to shove, if we have to leave someone behind, it's going to be you, just so you know.
Yep.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, Jeff. So just a quick reminder, by the way, when you go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account. You get all of our daily sit reps for free. You get all of JJ Morris's instructional videos ahead of time. We publish them on Substack before we publish them on YouTube. And you also get our Saturday watch guide, which has a list of everything we've published for the entire week. So moving on from there, I want to get into the assigning roles and, creating the charts. Let me pull that up for us here. So in this phase here, so call it segment number 2, step number 2, design a simple chart for each family member and define what their primary roles are, secondary roles, what gear they may be responsible for, tasks they're responsible for, and again, tailor it to their age, but try and make sure that everybody contributes something. Helps to foster, that whole team mentality. So for key role categories, I would go with what I've put in the guide here. So you got to have somebody who leads on communications, grabs the radios, walkie-talkies, whatever else you have, Garmin InReach minis, anything that's comms related. A gear manager who goes and grabs all the bags so that they can say, okay, well, this bag's yours. They've got names on them. By the way, with bags, one of the things that I like to do, and I don't see a lot of people doing it, I don't have Alzheimer's, but I have some timers. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. All of our go bags have a list in the top that tell me everything that's in that bag at a moment's glance so that I know what's in it. And if I look at it and go, shit, I'm missing something, I want to catch it before we jet, basically. A defense coordinator, so somebody who secures, firearms, those sort of things. Obviously, that's, a role for adults or teens who are well trained. A support watcher, so think of that as your babysitter on the go. Somebody who watches over the youngins and the pets, holds a flashlight, all of those sort of things. Navigation, so somebody who's confirming escape routes. You've got to have alternate paths. You have to be able to read paper maps. So I would recommend at least 2 people in your party know how to read maps. At our age, Gen Xers and above, we have no problems reading maps because we were born with them. But I can't remember what the number is today for people under the age of 40. I want to say it's like a handful of % that know how to read a map. So get that skill under your belt. And another one would be somebody just take attendance, like an accountability checker, especially if you have a larger family, you know, confirm everybody's in the group, you know, check all the doors and windows. If you're bugging in or you're bugging out, you want to make sure everything's security in both instances. And again, you know, under 10 years old, relatively simple stuff. Teens, a little bit more advanced. Adults, of course. And as you can see on the screen here, we've got a sample chart that you can go off of and start filling out everything for your team. So I'm going to come back to you, Khalid, first on this stage here and ask you, what are the most critical roles? Like, I know we've got a bunch of stuff in there, but just off the top of your head, the things you feel are the most critical. Let's say the top three.
Number one is communication, because once the problem, once the event happens, you've got to already have your communication systems ready. Whether you're going to work off of walkie-talkies, whether you're going to work off of ham radio, that's got to be in place from the very beginning. Number two, your own self-defense mechanism. How do you protect yourself? Number three, a backup power system. Because when you're sitting at a home, if the power goes, then you are defenseless, because at night you can't see anything. As long as you have power, you can all huddle into one room and turn on the lights and just sit there. And at least you're all together, you're safe, and everything's taken care of. One tip I would give is that whatever go bags you prepare, they should be prepared once, put in a closet in one location, and never touched. Because as long as you are fiddling with those go bags, you're going to pull something out of it. And when you need it, it's not going to be there anymore. I mean, we as habit, I have 3 vehicles. In each vehicle, there is a go bag. And literally identical go bags in each vehicle that has clothing for a certain number of days, weapons, medication, bandages, everything that I need is in that go bag in the car, ready to go no matter which vehicle we take.
Two questions. How many go bags and how many family members in Pakistan do you put on one moped?
I've actually seen 6 people on one bike, literally on a motorcycle. I have seen 6 people, and I just went, how did you get 6 people on it?
There's a Canadian stand-up comedian, Russell Peters.
Yeah.
And he is of Pakistani origin. He does this whole thing on the family of 6 on the moped. So that's why I asked.
It's hilarious.
I'm just being an asshole. So Jeff, moving on for your input here. I have a couple questions for you. The first one is, how do you make the chart simple enough that even a 7-year-old could understand it under stress?
Well, one way to do it is assign maybe like a symbol or an animal for everybody. Maybe dad is the bear, you know, mom is something else, and every kid has their own little critter, you know. Okay, and the little boy wants to be a T-Rex. Okay, so you have a little T-Rex or a little dinosaur.
That's good.
And that way they can see what do I need to do. They just look for, okay, I'm the dinosaur. Just look for everything has a dinosaur on it. And then, you know, the little girl may be a unicorn. Anything with a unicorn on it, that's for her. So, but do something visual, because, you know, it's about a 6 or 7-year-old. How well do they even read anyway?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's really well done. So kind of related to that is, what are like common mistakes people make when they're assigning roles to family members across everything from youngins to adults, and in Khalid's case in Pakistan to grandparents on down?
I think overcomplicating it and giving them too much information, because they get overwhelmed, especially under stress. It's like under stress. Okay, you're programming your old VCR from the 1980s, and then you get someone hands you here are the instructions, and it's 19 pages of fine print. The first thing you do is like, screw it, you know, and you end up throwing it in the trash. If it's too complicated, they're not going to do it. That's just human nature. They're going to go, screw it, I'll figure it out myself. And when it comes to some of this life or death, you may not want them just figuring it out themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm a classic example. So, I'm like, give me a couple of wrenches, man. I'll figure out what's wrong. I'll do it myself. I just put a lift kit on my Jeep. I had no instructions. I go, screw it, I can figure this out. And I did. It probably took me longer than it should have.
So as everybody knows, I have a thing for flashlights, and
You
with very
flashlights?
few.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm surrounded within arm's reach here. I've got at least 15 now, just in case. Uh, so, with very few exceptions, usually I'm big on ace beam flashlights for a very specific reason. You take it out of the box, you take the little film out between the battery and the lead, you put it back there, you turn on, you're good to go. I've had flashlights sent to us where there was nothing in the instructions. It was in some sort of crazy lock mode. Finally found some video on YouTube that has like 3 views on it, so it doesn't show up when you're doing any searches, where you have to rub your belly, pat your head, do 3 Hail Marys, and Lord knows what else to get them to turn back on. And then I get an email from the company. What? Yeah, are you going to share our flashlight? Oh, no, I'm not going to share it. That thing's brutal. Make it so you turn it on off. Simple. So I know it's a novel idea, but it matters to some of us. So moving on from there, step number 3, practice drills and build muscle memory. And of course, a lot of this we discussed last night, as well as far as red cell training is concerned, but preparation without practice, completely useless. So you should be doing drills that become a habit, right? So more reps, less thinking, things become second nature. So from a drills perspective, I can tell you that it has to be a light lift. It can't be a heavy lift. If it's a heavy lift, people will check out at all different ages. But, something in the 10-minute range is pretty good 2 or 3 times a month. And it could be, I would turn into a competition myself because I'm an ultra competitive person, but I would turn into a competition, start with some basic stuff like, grab your gear, be at the door in X amount of time, simulating real scenarios with somebody who's kind of running the show with a bullhorn, kind of like Keith Graves does when he's coaching up church security teams, and have a balance of, giving them some independence to do things, but at the same time, recognizing that there's a chain of command. Now, I understand that the chief of police in Washington, D.C. has no idea what a chain of command is, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say everybody in the survival dispatch audience knows what the chain of command is. So, Jeff, since you're in the lead seat, I'm going to come to you first here on this one. I'm curious, how would you give kids, younger kids in particular, some independence?
Well, give them a relatively simple task, but don't tell them how to do it. Let them figure it out. You need to put together something with that, food and water. What should I do? Well, why don't you do it? Tell us, I'd like to see what you come up with. And let them, because when it's the old thing, if you tell someone what to do, they don't want to do it. But if they think it's their idea, or if it is their idea, then they'll really want to do it because they have buy-in. So you got to give them buy-in by making it, don't just tell them what to do, let them figure out what to do. And you can gently nudge them in a different direction, or they put nothing but soda in their kit. And said, maybe just there's sometimes hot. You don't want a hot soda. Maybe just, what do you think? What would you want instead? Well, maybe what? Okay, well maybe just put some waters in there then. Maybe have a soda, but put some water. Put mostly water in there. Or they put in a food thing and it's like bread. You go, I love bread like everybody else, but day after tomorrow, 3-4 days from now, is that still going to be bread, or is it going to be penicillin? And they'll go, yeah, okay, maybe a protein bar or something would be better. Yeah, something like that might be better. But if there's little mistakes, kind of lead them to the right answer.
Great answer, by the way, because where I was going to go next is, how do you do this without turning into a boot camp for your family?
Yeah.
So, and on the topic of putting bags together, just a shameless plug for our friends at Carnival. We don't get any affiliate income from Carnival. They pay us a monthly stipend that helps us defer costs. We're well over $3,000 a month in software expenses, for example, to put everything together that we do at Survival Dispatch. But a bag this size at 6 ounces of freeze-dried meat turns into 1.5 pounds of reconstituted meat, 25-year shelf life, no mRNA, no antibiotics, no histamines, no bad stuff at all. Grass finished, not just grass fed. Tastes amazing. And they're an awesome American company. This bag is made in America. The meat's 100% American ranchers. The O2 absorber that goes inside of this, American made. It's all American made stuff. And if you've got to, take off with a go bag, get home bag, bug out bag, whatever it is, that's a great way to take high quality protein with you. You can reconstitute it in a matter of minutes and cook it over an open flame, or if you're at home, throw it in an air fryer, whatever the case may be. So shameless plug there. Carnivalt.com. Use the code, by the way, all one word, eat meat, and you get 10% off. You always get free shipping on that stuff. So Khalid, I want to come to you next and a very specific question. What's an example of a couple realistic drills that families could do with no gear?
Well, like I said, when you're out someplace, I mean, you go out to a restaurant somewhere and you're sitting in the restaurant and while you're having the meal, the father turns around and goes, okay, let's pretend like this restaurant's being robbed. How do you get out? Which way do you go? Do you hide? Do you go for the doors? Which doors do you go for? You don't have to actually move. Just tell me what you do. And it's a nice way to work. I'm going to do one of the shameless plugs as well. I've got everybody on our team. We don't use Google Maps. We use an app called What 3 Words.
Okay.
You put in a location, it gives you 3 words. You communicate those 3 words across your entire team. And when you put those 3 words into that app, it shows you the exact location you need to go to. So instead of, pinning a location and trying to figure out where you need to go, it just generates 3 random words. And you put those 3 words across your communication system, you punch it into that app, and it gives you pinpoint location. This is where you need this is your rally point. You need to start thinking from a point of view of having a printed map in your hands. Forget the idea of mobiles working all the time. It's one of the things that, because we're running teams all the time at Command 11, I have gotten all of my guys to the point where they can read a map in the mountains, where you won't even have a compass. You look up at the sun and figure out which way you need to go. So it's a conditioning process you have to go through. Start out really simple. What do you do when you're in a restaurant? What do you do if the car breaks down? What do you do if this happens? What do you do if this happens? As you move through, start making the tasks harder and harder and harder, and make the thought process more difficult, because that gives you that mental conditioning. And like we were talking about last night, that stress inoculation, it comes from here. And then one day, go out in the mountains and you walk away from your family. And everyone goes, where'd Dad go? Now, mentally, you've got to go back through that process that, okay, Dad's disappeared. Now we need to find him. How do we find him? Okay, my job is this, my job is this, my job is this. And then you move off and do it. So you've got to slowly build that up, especially with kids, because kids today have a very low attention span. Keep it simple, keep it quick, let them talk about it. You're going to get a lot of responses where they go, oh, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. Okay, it's never going to happen. But what would you do if it did?
Yeah, good advice, Clede. I like that. I'll add just a couple quick things. Number one, having a code word while you're in public. So let's say you're at a restaurant and you can see something bad's fixing to go down. Our word, it's easy, avalanche. Anybody at the table says avalanche, we're getting up and leaving. No talking, no what's going on, why are we leaving? We're just getting up and leaving. And so having a keyword like that. Just back to the bags for 1 second as well. I forgot to mention something else that people typically forget. It's not a bad idea to have some form of entertainment like card games or something like that when you're bugging out or bugging in, so that the boredom doesn't drive you nuts, keeps your morale up, those sort of things. And if you're bugging out, one of the things a lot of people neglect and don't think about is hygiene. And that's super important, not just from a smelly perspective, but also for both health and, mental reasons as well. And then when you were talking about, walking off on your kids, Clete, I was thinking to myself, I know some guys that when they run drills for somebody else, like they've been hired to run drills for somebody on an active shooter, when the whole thing's over, 2 more shooters come in after everybody's let their guard down. And it's like, shit, here we go again, sort of thing. So moving on to the next section of the plan. Again, if you're joining us late, go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account, click on the sit rep, the top article, and scroll the bottom. You can download our planning guide, your family planning guide, as well as the medical care one, which I'm going to show you in just a second. So step number 4 is to extend your plan to community support. It's really, really hard to survive in isolation, whether you're an individual or you're an individual group. So having a network of like-minded households, Christian households, would be a good start. Form mutual support cells. So many people call them MAGs, mutual assistance groups. So connecting with neighbors, potentially church members is great. Keith does a lot of that as well, where you can do things like running drills together, training each other on gear. So one of the things in my job that I have a really, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but somewhat ambivalent towards, is we get sent a bunch of equipment and I look at it and I think, yeah, that's pretty cool equipment. And then I think to myself, when am I going to have the time to RTFM? So I read the effing manual in tech terms, and it's a lot of work to figure out how to use everything. So sharing and training amongst others is a good idea. Sharing knowledge in general in small groups, and basically real world stories. So a great story would be, we're going to cover it at the end in a separate capacity, but the 14-year-old Scottish girl who defended her 12-year-old sister from being molested or raped by these, invaders. That's a pretty inspiring story. And I hope anybody who charged her, and if God forbid she gets convicted, goes to a very, very warm place. That would be my recommendation. So I'm going to come back to you, Jeff, on this section here. And very first question, like the obvious, why is isolation so dangerous in a real crisis?
Well, isolation is dangerous for your mental health as much as anything. That's why solitary confinement is such kind of a brutal punishment for people, because they start going crazy. And the other thing about having other people around, it's a sanity check on what you may come up with. You come up with some plan, and it might just be batshit crazy, and there's no one there to go, hey, dude, you'll be dead in 20 minutes if you do that. You need feedback, you need other people's ideas, and you need to, we're social creatures. Some people can do it on their own. I get that, but most people cannot. Most people are social, and they need that. And there's strengths in numbers. 2 heads are better than 1. Take your pick. There's all these cliches, but they're all accurate. And there's a reason for that. We're social creatures, and you need social interaction.
That's actually a really good answer, Jeff, because me being the simpleton of the group, first thing I thought of was, well, more guns. I get more trigger fingers and more guns. And of course, you took it to a whole level above that. But Khalid, I want to come to you next, because this is an area that you have a lot of expertise that I've seen firsthand, by the way. What's the right way to vet and build trust? In this particular case, we're talking neighbors, church families, or whatever, but in general, vetting and building trust.
Well, because we do a lot of vetting, we have learned to listen, ask a question, see what the answer is, and see how far they go with the answer. The thing that most people don't understand, and this was taught to me when I was quite young: answer the question that you've been asked. Don't go beyond that point. That's how you keep yourself in a nice box when you're talking to people. The problem that most people have is when you ask them a question like, do you know what time it is? The automatic response is, it's this time. That's not what you were asked. You want people that can answer. When you answer a question that you've been asked, that makes you someone I can count on. When you start oversharing or overexposing things, then you lose that level of understanding, because tomorrow you're going to run your mouth to somebody else. The next day you're going to run your mouth to somebody else. And my support group, my security group is breached, and that doesn't work for me. So one of the things we've learned is ask questions. Don't talk, listen. It's like I think you said in one of the episodes, God gave us 1 mouth and 2 ears. The reason for that is we're supposed to listen more than we talk. So put that into practice. Ask a question. Hey, so I noticed you were doing some work on your house. How long you've been working on putting in these kinds of cameras or putting in the lights like this? and the guy will explain to you what his background is, and you click off a skill set. Those things are important when you vet. Rather than coming down going, listen, if tomorrow the world ends, what can we work together on? You've lost that guy. I mean, he's gonna go, lunatic, stay away from him. He's gonna tell the whole neighborhood, lunatic, stay away from him. But in casual conversation, you can bring this up. Hey, I noticed the other day you were planting flowers. Do you have a garden? I mean, do you have gardening experience? I'm thinking about putting a garden at my house. Can you help me out? And you figure out what that skill set is. It's all a matter of leading questions, especially in the work that we're in. We cannot spend a lot of time talking to people. It's quick hit questions. And from those quick hit questions, we figure out whether you are someone we can trust or whether someone we should stay away from.
Good advice, Khalid. Appreciate that. So it actually goes into my next question for you, Jeff. How do you maintain OPSEC, so operational security, for those people not familiar with the acronym, when discussing preparedness with people outside of your immediate circle, your immediate family?
You do it slowly and stepwise. If you want to find out if the guy owns firearms, let's say, you say, you might say, this guy told me they're going to be putting in a gun range somewhere. Okay. It doesn't have to be the truth. Just say, someone told you that. Well, maybe they were wrong. And see what his reaction is. And if he says, well, how far away is it, man? I'd like to find somewhere closer to shoot. Okay. Then that leads to a perfect, you shoot. Well, really? Pistol, shotguns, rifle, what's your preference? And then let them tell you. But that way, at the end of the discussion, you say, okay, that person does or does not own firearms. If you want to see what kind of skills they have, and say the guy's an accountant. Okay, you don't care about an accountant necessarily after when shit hits the fan. You might say, what do you like to do for fun? Oh, I like to work on cars. Okay, and let him discuss that. I have a neighbor who I think when he was working, he was like an HR guy or something like that. But he rebuilds cars, and he's rebuilt a boatload of cars. So he's got welders and all this stuff. So okay, I need a welder. It's there, but you would not know that unless you talk to him. But find out one thing you want to learn about that person and see if you can find it out. And then build on that. Next time you talk to him, find out one more thing. Next time, one more thing. But you don't say, yes, I'm preparing for the end of the world. So if you're going to be part of my group, how do you, do you stockpile food? Yeah. No, you don't want to do that. But as he gets comfortable with you and you get comfortable with him or her, just kind of build. It's like building up a portfolio, one stock at a time. In this case, maybe one skill set, one attitude at a time. And if you find something that's a showstopper, then you go, okay, that's nice. And you just walk away. You don't call him an asshole or do anything else. You go, okay, that's nice. And you just be like a normal person and just scoot. And maybe not engage him again.
Good advice, Jeff. I appreciate that. So at the end of the guide, again, you can just go to survivaldispatch.news, click on today's sit rep, download it for free. It's at the bottom of my signature. Basically, there's 4 steps here: an initial family meeting, and then family meetings on some sort of regular schedule. Put a chart together so everybody in the family has a primary and a secondary role in that chart. And then set some time aside. 2-3 times a month is more than sufficient, 10-15 minutes to practice your drills. And once you have that in place for your family plan, then start looking at doing all the stuff that Jeff and Khalid just mentioned with regards to, putting together some sort of community, mutual assistance group. Believe it or not, in years gone by, we used to actually we talked to our neighbors. We had them over for cookouts. I mean, sounds like a foreign concept, but it used to be the thing when all of us grew up, and we're not even that old. I mean, Gen X, but not old in my book, at least as far as that's concerned. So again, you can download that for free, and we're at the end of tonight's episode. Although my apologies, I did want to show the document that Khalid sent along here from Nurse Rachel: medical response to the upcoming Homeland attack, care in a crisis. This is a really thorough document. So when you go to survivaldispatch.news, click on the sit rep, which is below the live video right now, but that'll go away as soon as we're done, and scroll to my signature. You can get this for free. This is a very well prepared document as far as providing first aid and medical care to people in your group. This has information in it for larger stuff like hospitals and the plans that they should have in place, which is really cool. They've got school system, high level plans to put in here. So if you're in the PTA or you work in a school or anything like that, and as you can see, this isn't overly complex. There's 4 bullets to the side. Yep. That's why Khalid and I both like this, because it's not overly complex. Places of worship. Okay. So this is Keith Graves' wheelhouse. Go to christianwarriortraining.com. We've been friends with Keith since he started Christian Warrior Training several years.
That bald guy in the picture, is that Keith? From this angle, it could be. He's bald.
Well, yeah, I mean, but Keith's problem is he washes his hair every day and it shrinks. I mean, he shouldn't do that.
He uses hot water. That's his problem.
So, yeah, I won't go through this entire PDF. We're halfway through it. It's a really, really good resource that I highly recommend that you grab it, put it on a USB key or some type of storage like that, print it out, dead tree format. So, if and when, the fecal matter hits the oscillating device, you've got it on hand. So moving on from there, I want to discuss this situation that happened in Scotland. Okay. So we've got this 14-year-old girl, and there's been a bunch of conflicting reports saying that she was 12, 13, or 14. She's 14 years old. Her sister is 12 years old. So they were being followed. There was one particular guy was making lewd and suggestive comments towards her younger sister at 12 years old. She stepped in to defend herself and her daughter and got arrested and charged for doing so. And this is just insanity, right? And people are blowing up over this, rightfully so. So number one, she's our hero of the day. And I'll play the video here. It's 43 seconds long. And I actually have a couple more pages I want to show you. And then I'm going to get Jeff and Cleed's input as well.
Yes, you have a knife.
Fucking profit. You're fucking bad and
Why are you fucking with us?
You're fucking cat bashers.
Show the knife. Show the knife. Show the knife.
Away from us.
Show the knife. Show the knife.
Don't touch her.
That's it. That's it. Show the knife.
Don't touch my weed.
Show the knife. That's it.
Don't fucking touch my little sister. She ain't fucking 12. When's her fucking touching? She's fucking 12. You just battered me, mate. Bring my fucking touch me.
Yeah. Show the knife. Maratha.
Don't touch her gun to me. Don't touch her.
So apologies for the NSFW language. I think it's a thing over there. Pilgrim James is from Australia, and he tells me that that's just common language for everybody at all ages. But either way, it kind of speaks to, how brutal it was. Here's a meme that somebody made. They're starting to come out, become ungovernable. And then the last one I have here is an article on this teen girl charged in Scotland for brandishing the axe after she was caught on video screaming at migrants to stay away from her 12-year-old sister. And again, there's the same video there. I'll put this link in the chat so y'all can check it out if you haven't heard of it. It's all over X, of course.
Yeah.
It's not hard to find, but she is very deservedly the hero of the day. Jeff, I mean, your thoughts, the British people, or not people, but I guess the
Government
establishment authorities have abandoned their people.
They really have. What I want to see is her sister was videotaping too, right? Or videoing. I want to see their footage. How many guys were they? What were they doing? Were they sitting there off camera trying to make, these lewd gestures and stuff, trying to get the girls, pissed off? Like the one guy goes, show me the knife, show me the knife, show me the knife. And he was obviously videoing, and he was setting them up. And what I would like to see is what, from the girl's perspective, and get their story and say, how many blocks did these guys follow? And what were they saying to him? And if that's the United States, man, if that was my daughter and the cops were coming to arrest her, there would be a big problem with that. Huge problem with that.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. As you're saying that, the name escapes me, but I'm thinking years ago, the guy who molested a young boy and the father shot him as he's walking by.
Gary Boucher.
I knew you'd remember.
Hero.
My hero. I love that guy.
Yeah, I do not feel sorry for that scumbag at all. Khalid, your thoughts on this break? Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
He did not get convicted. The jury.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
rightfully so. But Khalid, your thoughts on this particular young girl? Again, that's the hero of the day as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, look, if you pay attention to that video, I count at least 3 guys. I saw three sets of feet around her, and that one guy that was talking. So there was at least 3 guys around them. Then you got two young girls. If she was only defending her sister. At any court, and I mean any court that's dumb enough to convict this girl, that judge needs to be hung in the street. There's a great practice that started in Pakistan. I'm going to bring this up because our police force has gotten so tired of this child pedophilia and harassing children that guns tend to misfire when they catch one of these pedophiles, and they are no longer operational from the waist down. And that's fantastic. I remember way back in the 70s, we had a military dictator. In Peshawar, they caught 2 child molesters. He hung them from cranes for 3 days to warn the public that if you touch a child, this is what will happen to you. For 10 years, no one dared touch a kid. Sometimes you need to go across the line. What that girl did was to defend herself. She should be given a medal for what she did. She should not be charged with a crime. That's just unfair.
It's funny. It's my grandfather, who was born in 1899, to put it in perspective. He was taking me deer hunting in Arkansas, and he shows this big old oak tree, and it's a 300-year-old tree. He goes, I saw my first hanging in that tree. And I said, really? What was it? Because the guy had raped a girl. And when they caught him, he admitted it. So they just hung him.
Yep.
Wow.
So they're like, well, we don't need a trial. And that was it.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember which of our sheriffs it was. It wasn't Grady Judd, who's a rock star. It was somebody else. And the person in the press says, well, the homeowner shot the intruder 6 times. Isn't that a little excessive? And the sheriff says, no, actually, I wish he had shot him some more. The more you shoot him, the more likely he is to die, less paperwork for us.
Was he the same one that says, come in, we'll teach you how to shoot that gun better?
No, that's Grady Judd, but it's Sarah said it pretty well last night. We're leading the nation in a bunch of different ways here in Florida, and that's one of them. Because can you imagine somebody saying that in Washington State or, Illinois, Oregon, something like that? They'd be California, be going straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 straight to jail. So I want to give a shout out to Tim Smith. Originally, I was going to give a shout out to Dale, who's a machine on reporting stuff in our Signal chat. So if you sign up at survivaldispatch.news, $7.99 a month, $75 a year, you get 2.5 months for free. When you sign up for the year, you get an invite to our super high traffic private Signal chat. Today was a crazy day. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages in there. The busiest day I've ever seen had about 3,000 messages. And there's a little bit of chit chat back and forth, but a significant portion of it is information and intel. So it's one of the benefits of signing up. You get all 37 of our Survival Dispatch Insider magazines that you can see on that wall. We sell them for $10 a piece, so $370 worth of e-magazines for free. If you had those on hand and nothing else, and the internet went down and you had no books, you would have more than enough information to stay alive. In addition to getting our daily sit reps, by the way, below my signature, there's also all of our sources that paying guardians get that. You get enrolled in our SDEN system, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System, and a couple other small things like that. But it's not a lot of money. We do appreciate it. We appreciate our vendors. We appreciate our guardians who help us defer some of our costs. So the article that I chose from Tim is RFK Jr. just launched a full investigation into the meds the trans Minneapolis shooter was using. There's never been a time in America where people walk into a crowd or a church or a movie theater or a school and just start randomly shooting. So, a minute and 32 seconds. I'm going to play the bulk of it.
I certainly consider mass shootings a health crisis, and we are doing for the first time real studies to find out what the etiology of that is. And we're looking for the first time at psychiatric drugs. You know, these kind of mass shooting, people have had guns in this country forever. When I was a kid, we had shooting clubs at our school. People, kids, my classmates, other people would bring a .22 rifle with their guns to school and park it in the parking lot. Nobody was shooting. So there's never been a time in America in the history of humanity and people walked into a crowd, into a church or a movie theater or a school or a crowd of strangers and just started randomly shooting. It's happening in our country. It's not happening around the world. And there are many other countries that have comparable levels of guns that we have in this country. We had comparable levels in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and people weren't doing that. Something changed, and it dramatically changed human behavior. And one of the culprits we need to examine is whether the fact that we are the most over-medicated nation in the world, and that a lot of those are psychiatric drugs that have black box warnings on them that warn of suicidal and homicidal ideation. So we are doing those studies right now for the first time, and we will have an answer.
That's awesome. So, Jeff, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many of these kids are on SSRIs? In the case of the Minneapolis shooter, what are the hormone interactions? I mean, you get, my wife and I talk about this, and she kind of puts it, she goes, you get a man's aggression with a woman's irrationality. And I don't mean to offend the women out there. This is my wife saying this. She goes, but women get emotional and men can get violent. Mix those two together, you have a violent, emotional person. Not a good combo. And I'm the first to admit, most of them, these are all guys for the most part, well, except for the Kentucky one. Yeah. And guys tend to be violent, but they also, if they have fathers and strong families, they learn how to control it. But you throw into that soup, you know, they're on Ritalin, they're on some antidepressant, they're on Zoloft, and then maybe they're on testosterone or estrogen or something else. I mean, my God, we're giving these kids, it's like a damn chemistry set. We're just mixing all the crap together and they chug it. And then we're shocked that weird things happen. Of course they do. Yeah. These people are mentally ill in the first place.
Yeah, well said, Jeff. Well said. Khalid, your final thoughts on that?
I hate happy pills. I mean,
all I can hear in my head is Khalid going, F your happy pill.
The number of people that I have seen that have flat out told me I cannot get through the day without taking my happy pill, and I just look at them and go, God, are you stupid? You can't take any stress at all, that you have to have a happy pill. You have over medicated, and I'm talking Pakistan. The US is 10 times worse than us.
Oh, hell yeah.
You've got people going on the internet and finding different kinds of drugs they can take for themselves that will help them with weight loss, with bodybuilding, that you don't know what effect that's going to have on you. Then you've got doctors over prescribing medicine. Then you've got over the counter medications you can buy that are happy pills. And you wonder why the world has gone crazy. That's why. There's no one talking to anyone. So you're sitting in a room going, oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sad. Let me take a happy pill. And you pop one in your mouth and, oh, you feel great. And then you go on social media and start bashing people. You become a keyboard warrior. And instead of going out and playing in the dirt and playing football and, you know, getting that energy out of you in a different way, you are internalizing it. You're destroying your own mental capabilities. And you turn into something that is uncontrollable when the situation gets bad. That's why you've got so many of these crazy attacks happening. That's why you have so much violence now, because that energy is pent up. And when it's pent up, you're taking drugs to calm down. And instead of going outside and going for a walk, going for a run, just doing something to get the energy out, it calms you down, it settles your spirit, and you can get through the day. But if I'm going to start taking happy pills, I can't even think. I mean, the level that I need to keep my brain at, a happy pill brings me right down to the ground, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah, that's no good. So I have one last question for you before we do the conflicted question of the night. And I'm going to date all three of us here. But every time we're in this spotlight mode like we are right now, and you're front and center, and Jeff's upper torso is on my lower legs, all I can think of is Dorf wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Anybody who remembers the Carol Burnett show knows what I'm talking about, and Tim Conway playing Dorf.
Those were the days. Really, Chris, if you think about it, those were the days.
Oh boy, howdy. We had no idea how good we had it when we grew up, that's for sure.
We've been watching Johnny Carson reruns on Amazon. They're hilarious.
Yeah, I watch the Andy Griffith show over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that series. Grew up with it and love it to this day. So we're going to wrap up here with the conflicted question of the night. You were attacked by a gang of robbers and you successfully defended your urban stronghold. After scouting around, you find their children and their elderly waiting at a safe distance, too young and too old to survive on their own. Supplies are incredibly low and every scrap of food counts. Would you take the elderly and the children prisoners and share your supplies, or abandon them? Your limited supplies would be cut in half and supply would put lives at risk. How would you handle this situation? So I'm going to go to you first, Khalid.
Well, look, because it's children and it's elderly, I would take them in, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of value in taking care of the elderly and in taking care of children. Yeah, it's going to reduce your food supply, but you've got kids that you can train to hunt. They can go out and search for food for you. They can search for berries for you. They can search for all kinds of things for you. The elderly are a great source of experience and a great source of knowledge that you may not have. So there's no disadvantage in taking them in. When you're looking at the food problem, you're going to have that problem anyway. Your supplies are low. You're going to have to source for food. So you source for a little extra. But at the end of the day, you take in the most, and it's something we haven't talked about in our series is that when you're looking at your neighborhoods, we haven't brought up the fact that there are elderly people that are homebound, and someone needs to keep them in mind. Someone needs to take care of them, because if you don't do it, you're going to feel bad later. That, we forgot about our neighbor who was, 85, 90 years old and they couldn't get out of the house. So from my point of view, I take them in and we'll sort out the food problem.
Yeah, well said. Jeff, I'm dying to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I'm assuming the people who attacked us got wiped out, which is, they attacked and lost, so they're not around. The kids, definitely. The older people I'm worried about, because if they are the parents of the people who attacked us, what's their mindset like? And I'm thinking about, I don't want to bring in someone to poison the group, to bring in bad ideas. And if it's their kids that were killed, are they going to be really warm and fuzzy with us? Are they going to be looking to join this group, or are they maybe wanting to sabotage this group? So I would almost say, okay, I'll take the kids, especially if they're younger, and then maybe give the old folks enough food for a couple of days and say, you got about 48 hours to figure your shit out, but you're not coming with us, because I would not trust them to not spread that poison in my group.
Yeah, I mean, valid point. As per usual in all these conflicted questions, we don't really have, the full context, right? And so you have to make judgment calls based on that. So I guess just to ask you a question. So are you saying that if you were Maggie in The Walking Dead and Negan bashed your husband's skull open with a baseball bat wrapped up in barbed wire, that you wouldn't reconcile? Because The Walking Dead, they got together, they did a whole other series where they were partners, basically partners in crime. True story.
I would
It
reconcile
happens in Hollywood.
to tie him to a tree and use him as a diversion the next time The Walking Dead come up. Eat him while we go that way.
Right. Oh, that's too funny. Well, again, like I said, there's a serious lack of context in many of these conflicted questions. And, while I don't want to leave anybody, to die per se, I do have concerns. I have concerns even with the kids. If I take them in and, this gang, any of them are still alive, they're going to come for their kids, and it's going to bring more unwanted attention against us. And if I set myself in that post-apocalyptic scenario, in a perfect world, we'd take everybody in, we'd feed them, we'd all get fat and happy. But I don't see that happening based on, again, I always refer back to Black Friday, right? When we see Black Friday, people beating the crap out of each other for TV, what the heck are they going to do over food? There's a limit to keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. And that would be over the line for me. So without having more context, I would probably walk away from it, to be quite frank. It's a matter of survival in my mind. In order for my group to survive, as much as it sucks, I'm going to have to leave them alone. So without more context, that's where I would go with that one. But anyway, that wraps everything up for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night with the next episode 4, which is the last day of normal. So in other words, think of September 10th, 2001, same thing. And we're going to be going through a final 72-hour checklist of things that you need to have in place before a terrorist attack or other calamity. This doesn't just have to be a terrorist attack. It could be, a earthquake, hurricane, whatever the case may be. But we're basically going to provide some information as far as, gathering intelligence is concerned, your final countdown plan, so on and so forth. And it's going to be a great episode. Khalid and I've already been talking about it at length. Jeff, he's retired, so we don't pester him too much with this stuff. He's got better things to do than do this stuff with us.
Swimming today.
Perfect. So, like I said, we'll be back at the usual time tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Between now and then, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America. We got another brand new closing video for you to enjoy.
Bad deals keep on turning. Make America great again. Solid bills making us stronger. One with all our and all his friends in Jefferson's we stay. Oh yeah, come on. I've heard you talk about late night cold bear puts down. Well, how they remember we won't be seeing them around anymore, no more. Sweet home in America, where the skies in white blue. Sweet home in America, lovely home for me and you. Now President Trump is like no other. Whoa, does everything we voted him to do. Now Democrats, they don't bother me. Never again bother you. We got the truth, the whole truth. Sweet home in America, where the skies red, white, and blue. Sweet home in America, lovely home. for me.